We're back. Good morning. Welcome to your perfect day starter, the morning brief. It is officially 90 days into January. For those who think January is 100 days, but for those who think January or no, January is 30 days, it's January the 20th, 2025. Good morning. I'm Kari Okikulu.
And I'm Jeffrey Uzoma. Thank you so much for being part of the show. As always, a brand new week. We're counting down to whatever it is you're counting down to. It's going to be a very, very busy week, Kari, because Donald Trump is going to be taking over at the end of today as the 47th president of the United States. And there's a ceasefire ongoing in that Gaza Strip between Hamas and, of course, Israel. That war has been ongoing. 3 hostages have been released. So all eyes are in that direction. Down here in Nigeria, we're still talking about the review of the VAT by the governors, as well as some of the incidents that happened with the EFCC and a gentleman in Anambra State. There's a lot to do and talk about this week. So we'll do our best to bring you up to speed, highlight the very important ones, and make sure you have a great time right here on the show. I'm Jeffrey Uzoma.
Well, we promise you that we'll try to walk you through. It's quite a lot to chew on, but I've since realized that there is also value in some of the very little things in life. As much as people are chasing the big things, the big stories, which we'll definitely do for you, there are also very little things that we don't pay attention to, and I found some value in one, and that is watering plants.
You and my wife are in the same category.
Guess what, Jeffrey? Before I left home today, I stayed back to water plants, and I just realized that it does good for the mental health. Aside the fact that you're helping the environment, you're helping to replenish the earth. I mean, there's a lot of good in that for the environment, but it's also good for the environment of your mind and your life as well. So I think it's a good time for people to pick up some of those little things, because I think those little things really help. So, Jeffrey, I'm a proud plant watering addict. If there's anything like that,
I haven't gotten into that phrase. So my wife has been trying to convince me by doing it so that I can see it being done, because I see the flowers in the house.
Yeah.
Some are very resilient, no matter the level of water you put in there. If you overwater some, it goes bad. If you underwater some, it goes bad. And of course, so you need to know how to water this plant. But I said to myself, I think I have a lot on my plate already to be bothering myself with this plant.
Jeffrey, if you don't water the plants, you won't have anything on your plate. Or at least if you don't cultivate that, because that is responsible for what's on your plate eventually, the plants.
I'll try. I'll try.
Sure.
Because some of them, if they're like babies, literally. If you don't take care of them, boom.
And it just helps you value some of those things. Then you see how different plants grow. And as you said, some you don't water too much. You definitely don't water in the sun. You're going to kill, you're frying your plant. So you water very early in the morning. You pay attention to the plant.
You're really into this thing.
Try today. Well, my wife got me in, so I'm an addict at this point. But what do we have for you on the show this morning? Quite a lot we'll be looking at.
Quite a lot. But one of the things that stopped on my mind just before we get into what we're doing today on the show. Okay, maybe we'll just get straight to what we're doing on the show today. That's VAT sharing debate. So the governors are waiting. They were in opposition as far as this VAT formula is concerned. Well, the guys who did the formulation, the framework, the policy framework, they did quite a good job. But I think they do not understand the politics of some of this framework. So the governors who understand the intricacy of politics as far as the framework is concerned, because when it comes to sharing, it's no longer necessarily a tax issue, it's now a political issue. Collection can be a tax issue, but sharing is a different kettle of fish as far as Nigeria is concerned. So the governors are proposing leave equality where it is, take the population, 1% of population, and give it to derivation, so that it doesn't look like you lost in all of this battle. So we're going to look at all of this. What am I talking about? We will let you know. There's a sharing formula proposed by the governors as against what was proposed by the Oyedele Committee on fiscal reform, tax and fiscal reform.
Ultimate goal is to ensure that taxpayers' money works for taxpayers and Nigerians. But speaking of wealth and money, Jeffrey, we're going to be paying attention to how well we're able to troubleshoot this particular issue, the challenges and opportunities women face in gaining global access to wealth and resources. And we have a woman entrepreneur joining us on the show this morning. It's going to be a very interesting conversation. Dr. Jane Kimemia. And yes, we're still staying with money.
As a matter of fact, we celebrate women here every Monday, doing big things in their little corners. But that will not be all in the program. We will get to the subnational. Jigawa State, what exactly is going on with that state? It's a very quiet state. You don't hear so much as far as Jigawa is concerned. Just sit down, do their thing. So what exactly is going on with the development in that state? We're going to be speaking with the governor of the state at some point of the program to find out what the success has been, the challenges, the difficulties, as well as some of the strides he's recorded since assuming office. Just for the record, I think the entire Northwest region, which is the most populated 7 states, all the governors are new governors.
There you go.
All of them.
And if you follow Jigawa's history, you know it was carved out of Kano State.
Yep.
It has a border to Niger. Some people on social media call Jigawa the Jigs. So just in case you want to find out what's happening there, join us on the show. And of course, on Monday, we have our morning chapters for you. And today, we're looking at how to embrace resilience and growth. There you have it. Monfik joins us. We're also trying to cultivate that habit of reading, and we're bringing to you phenomenal stories of Nigerians, men, women doing great things, the ones that are also documenting it in books.
Okay, so those are the things we'll be talking about at some point. So when we're ready, we'll show you this issue about fuel increase and the price increase. But as soon as the producer gets it for us, we're going to look at what the NNPCL, not the NNPCL, what am I saying? The Dangote refinery is saying. So some people are complaining that the PMS price has gone up, but Dangote has come to give an explainer as to why this is. In fact, they said, look, we're absorbing some of the cost. The PMS price, international market, crude oil price, international market has actually gone up by a certain percentage. They are saying they haven't even increased it to cover up their own costs. So because of their commitment to Nigeria and all of that. So we're going to bring out that statement for a moment. But first, let's take you to the papers, Kayode. Which papers are we starting from?
So petrol will be sold at least from some of those outlets at 970.
Yes. So Dangote Refinery has partnership with 3 outlets in Nigeria. So where will they have partners? They have 3 partners. So those partners will be selling it at 970 naira. So if you know those partners, you get there. But they are saying that to make it uniform price across the country, they, as a refinery, will take on the logistics cost of transportation. So on one hand, they are not increasing it to the level that is to be increased, because if you understand how the marketplace, the crude oil price goes up according to the people who understand these things. Of course, the PMS price has to go up because crude oil is the major component or cost component of PMS price at the end of the day. So up it goes again, down they bring it down. So he's saying, look, we'll not increase it as much as we want to increase it, but we'll take on the logistics of transporting it across these 3 filling stations so that you can buy it at 970 no matter where you are in the country. Well, we've not heard what the NNPC allows to say. They have 2 refineries, Warri and Port Harcourt refineries. So NNPCL, we're waiting for your own largesse.
I don't know if the NNPCL has to say something, but it's understandable.
Why wouldn't they say they have 2 refineries? Right. Is a lower capacity anyway.
So there you go. We're going to walk you through some of those.
Yes, we're going to display the statement for them in a moment as soon as our producer is ready with it.
But let's get into the dailies this morning. We're starting off with the Vanguard newspaper. Vanguard newspaper is big on interest rates this morning, and there you have it. High interest rate. Manufacturers cut back on bank loans. Credit to sector records first quarterly decline in, get this, 2 years. But we have some more explainers. Manufacturers seeking other funding options. That's coming from the CPPE. High lending rates, outputs decline, discourage lending for investment. And businesses postpone investment decisions. It's quite a lot to chew on, but there you have it. It's just as simple as it is. If they're not able to get their loans from banks and they need funding, they'll obviously go somewhere. Where are they going? Well, CPP said other funding options, but you and I know some of those funding options that banks are considering. So, that the businesses or manufacturers are considering. So, is this a wake-up call either for the CBN or the banks to ensure that we find a way around this interest rate conversation?
I am hoping that the CBN, actually is the CBN at the center of all of this. They have just some very short tool or limited tools to be able to stabilize the economy, and one of which is the interest rate. So with inflation not tapering, inflation is still going high, although it was marginal month on month in the last numbers that were released by the MBS. So it's the complexity of the Nigerian economy. On one hand, the proposal, the government, the fiscal authority is saying we had to do what we had to do because the economy was heading for a collapse. What they simply are saying is that where we're going is that we were spending money we didn't have, so we had to borrow to even spend. So we needed to take out monies from as many things as possible. Well, of course, some of the actions of the previous administration and some of the actions of this government also spur up the inflation number. So the only option left to the CBN is interest rate, and they keep increasing. So we're hoping that by February, maybe they will hold. They'll go dovish. They'll bring it down if possible, but I don't expect them to hike in any shape or form. But just that the headline inflation is going up. So what I'm saying with all of this, in the mix, the biggest hit has to do with the people and then the manufacturers, who this interest rate is totally unacceptable, is out of reach. You can't be borrowing money at 30-something%.
I think that the point is to really find a way around it.
Yes, you can't be borrowing money at 30-something%.
Interest, because you have, and that's why we have.
What do you want to do?
Coming up? It looked like the banking system was too heavy for a lot. There were too much bottlenecks, and fintechs came. Some of them started charging zero on, and people migrated. So there's an obvious problem, and we need to resolve it. Else, people will continue to.
So that's that real sector that needs all of the monies. That when they have the money to do business, it will affect the entire ecosystem of our GDP. They need this money. So I don't know what the government has to do. The interest rate has to come down one way or the other, so that these guys can borrow and do business. Perhaps that's why they have the credit card, the guarantee credit company that the government is setting up. I don't know how far-reaching that will be.
That's coming later in the year. The end of the first quarter or thereabouts. So that's much later.
According to Mr. Oyedele, it says that about 1 trillion naira worth of inventory unsold is still in warehouses. Of course. So it's a very difficult situation.
And you see Donald Trump's picture on the front page of the Vanguard, and you mentioned that earlier. But the Vanguard focuses on what awaits Nigeria as Trump mounts saddle.
That's a very big one. So he's going to be doing a lot of signing by 12 today. So let's see how it affects us.
With the Vanguard newspaper.
Okay, but just on that Vanguard news, before we leave it, Serap writes Trump seeks return of stolen assets. I think I totally agree with Serap. The politically exposed persons, the ones who are mischievous and are stealing and are thieves of our currencies and our monies, they put these monies in foreign banks. So the greatest thing Trump can do for us is not to threaten us about BRICS and all of these things he's been talking about. It's to help us get back this foreign money. Because now the government, we're looking for money as a government. We need money, all of it.
Yeah, so that's Trump funny, Jeffrey. So the greatest thing he can do for us, when his mantra is make America great again, not make Nigeria, make Africa great again. So it's protectionist, first of all.
Yeah, so, he has a protectionist.
It's a wake-up call to countries. Nobody's coming to save you at the end of the day. You have to push for it and save yourself.
My brother, it's our money. Just return it.
Yeah, so we absolutely get it, but I don't think we should go cap in hand. Please give us our money. It's our money. Give us.
Well, this Nigeria says Niger tanker explosion, 80 buried in mass grave. When I saw this story, it was quite heartbreaking. Very difficult to accept. 55 in critical condition as death toll rises to 86. Tinubu Khan, senators mourn, describe tragedy as unfortunate. Got it. This story, I don't know, it's over and over again. I think one of the things that Africa has failed to do, this is not a Nigerian problem alone. Africa has failed to prioritize human life. I do not understand. There's the responsibility of government on one hand, there's the citizens' responsibility on the other hand. So we all have something to take and look around to be able to say, let's take responsibility for our lives. People cannot just be dying. When you see these trailers drive on the road, you ask yourself, who checked this trailer from where it left? Okay, let's say the person who missed it. The policemen who are checking, the ones who are collecting monies on the road, and the traffic officials who are doing same. They saw this trailer. All of us know that even if you're not a professional, sometimes you can see trailers and say, this one, something is wrong. Either the container is not well lashed on it or something. This is the end. This is the end result of such things, and it's quite sad. Our thoughts and our prayers are with the families, but it's really sad to continue to do these thoughts and prayers when it's avoidable.
Certainly, the president in his statement advised citizens to exercise caution, avoid approaching accident sites, especially those involving fuel-laden vehicles. And then he asked the National Orientation Agency to initiate a nationwide educational campaign. I think everybody knows that petrol, kerosene, they're flammable. I think everybody should know. So sometimes it's not a lack of knowledge. Maybe it's just that survival instinct, which again is sadly not an excuse. A lot of people see this and they think 1 liter is 970. If I'm able to scoop at least 5 liters, that is this amount. Sell it on the black market, I get money, but I don't think at that point that my life, which worth more, is at risk. So it's a really sad one, but we hope that we can step up our orientation, Jeffrey, certainly. But let's move on to the next daily, and we'll take the Guardian newspaper for you. The Guardian newspaper is what we have next, and it's quite interesting what the Guardian leads with this morning. Posers over checks balances as FG enforces council autonomy funding. So yeah. I like this to digest because it's been a long time coming, and we referenced that meeting the president had with governors saying that nobody wants to take local governments from you. So now we're seeing enforcement. What shape, what form will the enforcement look like? It doesn't quite say on the front page, so you have to get more details of that on the inside pages.
Well, let's see how that plays out. Well, we've seen some governors and some government turning this law on his head. The LG autonomy. Places like Edo State is arguing about the issue of fiscal autonomy as against political autonomy. And I don't know. I always say that things are absolutely simple until politics gets involved and it gets complicated in Nigeria. If somebody steals, the law is very clear now to approach the person, take the person to court. The person can be found guilty or not. But as soon as it involves politically exposed persons, we don't hear anything again. So, for instance, I was thinking the other day, Yunus Ahari, the man who went to announce results of election in Adamawa. What has happened to that case? Betaidu, what has happened to that case? Farouk, what's her name again? Farouk, what has happened to that case? I could go on and on. You know, sometimes it looks like the media thing just goes on for a bit, and as soon as it dies down, we just hear it goes, just like that. So, the council autonomy, the federal government has done its part. Well, the state governors, we're not sure of how they are approaching it. Some are approaching it the best way they can, but we hope and we pray that it works out, because that's the lowest level that reaches the people at the bottom. And now LG council chairman will now have to be responsible. We must say, however, that some states are really doing well as long as LG autonomy is concerned. There are some states, they don't bother about your money, just do the thing you can do. But some, their eyes are there.
Certainly. And I think we should have some pictures on this front page, the governors, the pictures of the governors. Because we have Algon, the National Assembly, the President, Judiciary, and all. But we don't have the governors.
I don't know. Okay, the governors, I agree. We should have had Abdurrahman Abdurrazak somewhere here.
Well, we have two former governors, so maybe that will suffice.
No, they are taking a new role. They are taking
So there you have it.
New role.
Look at the front pages, and you can tell that some of these stories will form our conversation on the show. And we're starting off with an explainer of where we're headed with the taxes yet again. With the VAT, the governor saying, this is what we want. Is that what the agreement will be eventually? What does this thing even mean? Derivation, all of that.
Fiscalization, there are three words: attribution, derivation, fiscalization. All of them are in tango.
So we'll give you an explainer with someone who, of course, is in a position to properly walk us through, and that's in a few seconds.
Join us again. So welcome. Last week, the governors had a meeting and they decided to make a proposal to the Tax Reform Committee, who had proposed a sharing formula for VAT, value-added tax, which is a consumption tax. They had initially proposed 20 for what they call equality. Quality, simply talking about that all states are equal. Population, that is explainable. The bigger your size, perhaps the bigger the portion you get, 20%. And then derivation, what exactly do you bring to the table in terms of generating this tax? You get to 60%, so broadly speaking, but that caused a lot of trouble. The governors were not in agreement. So they proposed and said, look, for the equality, leave it at the 50 it was in the current law, and of course you can play with the other ones. So they're saying now population can be 20%, derivation can be 30%. Well, we have someone who will give us all of the explainers and what this means. It has not been passed. These are just proposals by the governor. Our guest right here in our Lagos studio is the President, Chartered Institute of Taxation of Nigeria, Mr. Samuel Agbelu, joins us. Thank you, sir, for coming on the program.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
We also have joining us via Zoom an economist, Dr. Biodun Adedipe. He joins us via Zoom. Dr. Biodun, thank you so much for coming on the program as well. Dr. Biodun, if you can unmute your device so that we can hear you.
My sincere apologies. I assumed it was. So sorry about that. Very good morning to you.
Absolutely.
And I'm happy to be with you this morning.
All right, so let me start with you, Dr. Biodun, on this one before I come to the president of CIT and here in our Lagos studio. You know, this has been a back and forth. Section 77 of that bill, which will become an act eventually, hopefully. 4 bills proposed by the Tax Reform Committee, and that was a big threat to literally throwing all of the bills away. And this has to be a concession. In your view as an economist, are we moving forward now?
I will say emphatically that we are moving forward. Now, what played out last week for me is good news for Nigeria. And why do I say that? Now, when you do reforms of the tax system and structure, there are so many issues involved. But to have only one area that the governors gave attention to as contentious, for me, it is very positive for Nigeria. That means all the other issues and aspects of these reforms are acceptable to the governors forum. And that is why I see this as positive. It's a step forward in the right direction.
Mr. Agbelu, you are the tax man. In responding to the same question I asked him, how you received that particular news from the governor's position and their proposal now, I would also like you to do a bit of a quick explainer to Nigerians who may not be familiar with the things we're talking about in terms of equality, derivation, and of course, population.
Okay, thank you. I agree with my friend Dr. Adedipe that it's a positive development. At least we are now certain that the baby will not be thrown away with the bathwater, because I tell you, beyond the tax aspect of this bill, it's also aiming at it's a step aiming at ease of doing business in Nigeria. So it has a lot of benefit for this country, and to that extent, we are happy that the baby has not been thrown away with the bathwater. Now, the derivation, and like doctor also said, that is just a segment. What has been controversial is just a segment of the whole bill, bringing about positive development within our tax space. And if the sharing, the government, the federal government, by virtue of that bill, has decided to reduce its own share of the VAT from 15% to 10%, meaning more money will be available for the state and local government. And so 90% of what is left is what has been causing this kind of issue. And there has been change. You change your percentage from possibly 30 to 50 or manner something, that kind of a thing. To us in the institute, that is actually not the problem. You change, you get more money,
state A, instead of getting 100, is now getting 120, all those kind of a thing. So just be ready to account for what you get, because that is critical for us as an institute. We have conducted research over and over, and one of the reasons why Nigeria don't want to pay tax is because of lack of transparency, accountability of what is collected. So now, once you get it, account for whatever you get. And okay, we have currently equality 50%, and that means nobody is left behind in the real sense of it. And the institute has said this even in the course of the debate, that the sharing formula should not be essentially economic focused, that we should look at the social aspect and the political. And I think that has come to play in what the governors have done. So the revision now 30%, and that is what the economic activity, because VAT is a consumption tax. So if you are not consuming, you don't get anything. So you need, and for you to consume, your purchasing power must be good. So meaning that your citizens must be empowered. Otherwise, it could be any amount, but your citizens don't have the money to go and purchase anything, you get nothing. And so the governors have responsibility, which is very important. And of course, the population, 20%. I think a lot of politics has come into this. It's not bad. It's done everywhere. You must, for state A to do very well, state B must not be in war. And so if we all grow together as a country, that is good for us. So if the praying that the National Assembly will do the needful and we pass the bill and implementation will come in, there are a lot of things we are not addressing in the implementation post passing of this bill. What are those responsibilities for the stakeholders? That is very critical, and the governors must pay attention to this. The VAT Act or the bills, when everything turns to art, will not operate itself. It will mean that you pass the bills and Nigeria will turn to Eldorado. So your input into the implementation will be the deciding factor. You do very well, the bill you get the benefit. And I tell you, we will keep on repeating this. And I travel everywhere across the country. I came yesterday to Lagos from Damaturu and Maiduguri. So I see development across the country. If you do very well, you motivate the citizens to pay taxes. If you don't do very well, they won't pay.
Right.
And once they don't pay, you don't get the money.
Interesting point you've made there. And I'll take this to Dr. Adedipe. I noticed that all the while you were speaking, he was agreeing with you to a large extent. And I'll start with the very first point I think he agreed with you on. Some may say, what's this plenty ado about VAT? There are other things bigger fish to fry, right? But Dr. Adedipe, you agreed when he said first, the focus of CITN is not exactly on the amounts, the percentage and all of that. Is accounting for what you get. And if I get this correctly, it means that it's the same governors that he's referring to, that they should be accounting for what they get. And I think that was very silent in the statement they put out. There was no talk about, okay, moving forward, this is how we'll begin to account for what we get. What was big was, this is how much we want to get for equality, derivation, and population. So if that were to be included, what do you want to hear from the governors in terms of accounting for what they get?
I think I will cite an example here that happened in Lagos State many years ago when Governor Fashola was in office. He made a remark then. He said, I'm not going to run after anybody to pay taxes. But when people see what I do with the taxes they pay, they will be naturally motivated to live up to their responsibilities as citizens. That has always been a reference for me each time I discuss taxation in Nigeria. Now, I expect our governors to put out as part of their communique that we are looking also at the aspect of compact. We call it social compact, which means the government makes a commitment to make proper and effective use of the resources that citizens commit into their hands. In which case, I look at myself as a citizen. I reside in Lagos State. So I meet all my obligations as far as the status are concerned in terms of tax. And so I expect in return for government to do those things. I can point to and see that this is what they have done with the money I gave. So that becomes a motivation for me to continue to comply and in fact also strive to make more. So if I generate more income, of course I pay more taxes and I see what government is doing with it. So it becomes a social compact, and that is the way we describe it. So our governors should also come out and make that statement that is motivating and reassuring. So that can be an addition they should consider in further conversations while the bills are still being processed through the National Assembly.
So I'd like you to speak to the point Mr. Agbeli made as well about the new proposal from the governors. By the way, this is not the law. It's not in the law. It's just their own position, right? This is still going to go through the National Assembly process. I'll wait to see if the lawmakers will toe the same path that some of their governors have told. But he mentioned that, I mean, maybe the fact that we have, at least from the governors, derivation at 30% instead of what we had at 60% before is maybe a good compromise. But some have argued that this may not support, I mean, or at least this will not push the governors to want to engender economic activities. It's like, oh, anyway, it's not really big on derivation. So do you think this might be a challenge, as some have raised that point?
Well, for me, it's that aspect is a little worrisome, and I will explain why. Now, when you look historically, let's say the last 40 years, and take an example of the Chinese economy, how it developed and evolved over those decades. One critical thing that has been mentioned in a review of that is regional competition, which is what brought China to where it is today. So in my own view, I looked at the proposal by the Oyedele committee and told myself that putting out 60% for derivation, for me, will become a tool that will motivate regional competition. In our own case, it will be competition between the states. That will perhaps make every state to look inwards and think about what do we need to do to energize economic activities within our own geography. And in the process, as we create more value, we also enhance our contribution to the VAT pot. And if we contribute more to the VAT pot, it means we also get more back in terms of this allocation of 60% to derivation. Now, that was the way I thought about it. But now coming to 30%, yes, some might say, well, 30% is an improvement over the current, 20%. Yes, granted, that is good to some extent. But I wished that that particular portion is moved up higher. If you ask me, I would say we should look at something maybe 40%, okay? So we can even look at it from this perspective, that can we put some years and say, all right, if these bills are passed this year and derivation is good at 30% for 2025, can we possibly look at raising that to 40% in year 2028, then 45% in year 2030? For me, when you do that, it is a motivation for competition. That by this time around, it is healthy competition that will make every state aspire to create more value within its territory and therefore contribute more to the pot and be able to take even a lot more out from the pot. That is my own perspective, about this.
No, Mr. Agbeli, it appears that plan, as explained by Dr. Adedikpe, has been botched, because that was the whole idea, viability of the state, pushing the governors to say, look, there's money on the table, all you have to do is work for it. But it's been botched, literally, just an increment so that everybody smiles at the end of the day. But there are other parts we need to talk about as far as the proposal is concerned. And we read the headlines talking about how manufacturers are seeking alternative funding because of the interest rate that is high. The governors have proposed that do not increase VAT, because the idea of the committee was increase VAT on certain goods and then reduce company income tax. So that serves as incentive to the companies to do more business. But all of that now, the governor say no, leave VAT as it is, don't reduce company income tax. How should this be I'm looking for the right word. What should be the response of the real sector and the manufacturing sector as far as this is concerned? Because if this passes through, if this proposal is considered by the National Assembly and is passed, what incentive do people have to do business?
Oh, okay, thank you. The manufacturing sector, we at the end of the day not be happy, and I will explain. VAT is a consumption tax, like I said before, and it's actually not paid by the company. The VAT is paid by the consumer, so it's not a cash flow, because we must be mindful of the cash flow. It's not a cash flow that is leaving the purse of the company. It is a cash flow leaving the hand of an individual. So to that extent, not increasing is not essentially a benefit to them. Although we could look at the other side and say, okay, many people will be able to buy, and once they are able to buy, you stay in business.
Exactly.
That is as far as VAT is concerned. But they are never going to be happy about not reducing company income tax. And Nigeria should not be happy about not reducing company income tax, because our company income tax is about the highest in the world.
How much is it now? What percentage?
30% now. And by also insisting that education tax should be retained, which is for third fund, we are talking about 33%. Now, if you are not competitive as a country, the foreign investors will not bring in their money to you. This is not difficult to understand. And now, if you have 30% and you are not competitive, and people are not bringing in money to the country, at the end of the day, you are not going to get the kind of economy development that you want. That is very critical. And so to that extent, but we need to move forward. Whatever, based on what the governors recommended, what has been the bill originally, is a massive step forward. So for the stability of the country, possibly we need to get this and say, okay, we are good. Possibly in another 5 years or thereabout, we think with what is on ground. Once we see the implementation, then we come back. President Buhari did something very good. He introduced Finance Act, the Finance Bill, which turned to Finance Act into our system. So with that, whatever you see that is not too good in the implementation, you can go back every year as you submit your budget. You go back with a proposal in form of a Finance Bill to amend that. That is a possibility. So I am happy that we are where we are, but it is not yet Eldorado. We must be competitive. And one of the benefits of this bill, and I said it in my opening remark, is that the use of business, of doing business in Nigeria, should be of concern to everybody. And so before now and up to now, we have potential foreign clients who wants to know what is going on in the country. The serious people, whether in business or in government, don't work on luck. They want to know what will be their tax exposure if they come to Nigeria in the next 5 years, in the next 10 years, as the case may be. And so when they ask for our advice, can you give me an idea what the possible payment I will make tax-wise once I invest in this country? No tax professional has all the knowledge, the information to give something close to reality in terms of estimate, because of the unweighted nature of the tax before now. That, by virtue of this bill, which we pray will become an act, is going to be resolved. And you see, the job has just begun. We must say that. A lot of taxes that are being combined, those who are collecting the money, they are not going to fold their hands and say, okay, we like President Tinubu, I like my governor, and I'm not going to collect this money. So the governors have a lot of job waiting for them, because those people will resist. And we know this because we interact with various state internal revenue chairmen. They want to go and collect money. Nigeria can collect more than 3 of what we are collecting today. States can collect more than 3 of what they are collecting today. Now, the chairman, by virtue of his investigation, profiling, and the likes, he has seen some big taxpayer who should come into the tax net, and is about to move. The moment he moves, the governor calls him and says, please, those are the people who put me here. So how do you collect money? So we need to look at this very well. Most of the money collected that is becoming a nuisance, which we call nuisance tax, they actually not being brought into the purse of the government.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, they are creating crisis within the system.
You see, so these are some of the issues that should be spoken about.
Exactly.
I mean, aside the fact that this is what we want for equality, these are the issues. And
Yes.
I maybe want both of you to speak to it as we wind down. Because for a lot of people now, when they hear that they want to be brought into the tax net or there should be some sort of optimization and all of that, what they say is, yes, I may not be paying this tax directly to government, but I've been paying that tax informally. So a lot of people, for example, they've been playing the role of government, generating their power. You tell the average business teller, I spend up to 40% on power. These people fix their infrastructure, whether it is water, whether it is roads. So they have been playing the role of government. And it's not to say that when this optimization begins, those things will stop. It will still continue. So this is another part of the conversation that I don't know if you're considering it, if it's something you have raised as well. Because people need to be encouraged, and I need to see that if I'm going to be paying more, then I need to stop paying more on maybe electricity, roads, and water. Is that something you think is also missing, or is it captured in this whole process? Before I go to
it's not precisely captured, and we are also we have some additional recommendation. So once the National Assembly call for public hearing, we'll be adding some of our voice, because it is clear, it is important. We must take away the impediment why people are not paying taxes. So I tell you, by virtue of what I know, representing the institute, even before I became the president, the former chairman of FCT-IRS wanted President Buhari to come to the nation and say, this is my tax card. I'm also a tax compliance person. It is symbolic. It gives confidence to the people that even the people at the top also pay their taxes. I know, by virtue of what I've been doing over the years, that President Tinubu pays his taxes, but he needs to come to the public and show that okay, I also am a tax compliant person. That is one. Two, it will take time before everything we align. I'll give you an example. Do we say, okay, because they are not using the money properly, let the government go and borrow money?
No, pardon me, Mr. Kuli. So this is not about the use of the money. It's the fact that people are already paying those taxes in one way or the other, yes, because they are their own government. Yes. So now this is going to be over-taxation for some. If you get what I mean. And maybe I should go to Dr. Adidipe, then I think we'll wind up. Dr. Do you catch the drift?
Yes, I do. In fact, one of the exciting things for me in these reforms is that we are looking at over 60 different taxes, levies, dues, etc., that are collected through the 3 tiers of government, reducing now to single digits. And I'm happy the governor didn't challenge that aspect, because what this means is that there are some taxes that state governments collect right now, that if these reforms, successfully come into acts as proposed by the presidency, it means that those taxes will no longer be, legally, I use that word advisedly, legally be collectible. So, like Mr. Agbeni said, the real challenge now will be to enforce, that is, ensure we implement this to the letters. If, for example, state governments don't have to collect state taxes any longer, which was what was proposed in the initial, bill. So what that means, in essence, is that the agencies that look at that as what define their own target for the year in terms of revenue collection will, of course, do some kind of pushback. So which means a lot more will be demanded from our governors to ensure that these bills, when they become acts, are effectively executed. And I'll give an illustration and then I will stop. Now, about 2-3 years ago, some, chartered accountant came to me, referred by a younger brother of a friend, and said, there is this federal government agency, which in fact is one of those in this controversy with the state governors, that by its statute, it is supposed to collect this much per annum. But when we did an audit of that aspect of our tax revenue, we found that there is uncollected 136 billion naira. So I want to do a proposal to President Buhari. Please, sir, do you know any advisor or minister who reports directly to President Buhari, so I can then pass this through him to President Buhari, who happens to be statutorily the chairman of the board of that agency? So now, when I look at that, such entity, certainly we want to push back in terms of implementation of this. So there has to be eyes of the governors and also additionally their hands when it comes to implementation. And that will apply also to all these various stakeholders. For those of us on the advocacy side, and Channels Television is doing a fantastic job in that. And people like us that we invite occasionally also contribute to the conversation. We must also not relent in terms of speaking to wherever gaps are. Just like Mr. Abelu said, when we get to public hearing, we also go there and put out our views and opinions on what gaps there still exist in what we have, to ensure that ultimately we get something out that is better for Nigeria and indeed good for all of us.
There's a lot to talk about still. Just 30 seconds. I know you have something to land with on. Just 30 seconds.
Okay. The VAT, which is so controversial, now that we are now increasing the rate, the revenue will drop from VAT because a lot of incentive has been given. Those incentives are good for the manufacturers and producers, and we support that. Let them breathe. Let them do well. Once they do well, at the end of the day, Nigeria will be good and we will have more money to collect.
Thank you so much. As a matter of fact, there's a part we didn't talk about, but maybe some of the time when we have you gentlemen, we'll talk about the issue of levies. You know, this wood that throw stones on the road and what do they call that thing? Wood on and nails. Those ones. Yes, they talked about levies and all of that.
Yes.
I don't know how that is going to be implemented because there's a lot of politics in that as well. Because some of these guys are foot soldiers or politicians. How do you solve that problem? I must thank you, Mr. Samuel Agbelu, President, Chartered Institute of Taxation of Nigeria, and Dr. Biodu Adedikpe, an economist, both joining us right here in our Lagos studio and via Zoom. Thank you so much, gentlemen. Thank you, sirs.
Thank you.
And now we will take a quick break. When we come back, we will begin to talk about women in business. It's a feature we bring you up to speed with every Monday right here on the program. Join us again.
Bringing you the phenomenal story of a woman in business. This is what we do every Monday. Just put the spotlight on these women so you're encouraged, whether you're a man or a woman, right? We're not biased. And we have joining us on the show this morning Dr. Jane Kimemia, who's the CEO of Optiva Capital Partners. She's right here with us in our Lagos studio. Good morning. Welcome.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
I don't know if you listened to the conversation around taxation. You're a wealth retention, wealth creation person, and taxation, I don't know if it supports wealth creation and wealth retention or otherwise. Perhaps you might want to speak to that, how that maybe improves the landscape of wealth creation, all through the value chain. But I'm particularly interested in your journey as a woman in business, is what we do. First, on a scale of 1 to 10, how challenging is it being in business?
How challenging has it been? It's interesting. Today, the 20th of January, today marks 28 years since I started working in corporate. I joined Barclays Bank on the 20th of January, 1997.
So today's a remarkable day.
Absolutely. It's a remarkable day to be having this conversation.
Wow. So
Yes.
on a scale of 1 to 10, how easy, or I don't know if it's difficult, has it been?
On a scale of 1 to 10, I've had an amazing career. Prior, I've been at Optiva Capital Partners now. This is my 8th year. Prior to that, for 20 years, I worked for 2 international banks and rose through the ranks from, temporary person, teller at the beginning of my career, to an executive director in a multinational bank, and to a managing director for 2 of the subsidiaries. On a scale of 1 to 10, that's an interesting question. How hard has it been? I would say 7.
7.
Yeah.
That's tough.
It's tough.
But it's quite interesting.
Yes.
From a teller, a temporary teller, you said. That's where you started from.
Yes, they called us temps.
And you rose up.
Yes.
How does that work? How did that work? How does that happen?
Okay, so I started off as we were temporary. You'd work for 3 months, and then you'd actually take off because of the labor laws. So my first job that I got as a permanent job at Barclays Bank was actually a teller, a cashier, and that time we didn't have note counters. But I absolutely loved it.
You did?
Yes. So I was a teller for a number of years, and I went into sales. And that was specifically for Barclays Bank. They call that segment prestige banking. And when I was a salesperson, I sold, and I absolutely loved it. And I remember my branch was near the United Nations headquarters in Nairobi, and every single day I went into the complex, and I had amazing success. And I grew after that into project management. I was a project manager at Barclays Bank, looking after. Now I started doing regional jobs: Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, Mauritius, Seychelles. So writing business cases, execution, deployment of basically implementing projects and bringing change. It's transformation. That is what project management is about. And I became a project management practitioner, project in controlled environment. And then I went back into business as head of scheme lending, and I was in charge of lending for the bank, looking at specific companies, governments, institutions, and packaging lending institutions for their employees. And that was absolutely fantastic. I had everybody from the Service Commission for Teachers to the Department of Defense to the entire government ministries to all blue chip companies. And then I went into Premier Banking as head of Premier Banking, charged with the responsibility of turning around a business that wasn't doing very well. And in a nutshell, moving over to Standard Chartered Bank as General Manager, Priority and International Bank, and later on as Executive Director and Head of Wealth Management in charge of investment banking, bank assurance, and FX for the East African region. And then on to Optiva Capital Partners, where we started as who we had been as an insurance brokerage firm to whom we have grown into a fully fledged wealth management business and wealth retention business, serving the needs of our clients across wealth retention and global citizenship.
Okay, so before we get to a great career you've had, I must say.
Yes.
But you failed to tell us what the challenges were. So you're going to touch on the challenges and some of the things that you see in the community that you're trying to address. When I mean community, I'm talking national communities. Now, I'm talking about regional community, but this time we're going to zoom down to some of the specifics. But walk us, because somebody hear your stories, oh, it's all beautiful, I need to go to school, I can start from somewhere, it's going to be all of this beautiful, but the challenges is part of what we do on the program. What were the challenges, and how did you walk around it?
You see, there are a number of challenges. I think the first one is as a woman at the workplace. I remember the first time I went to work in Mauritius, and there's real stereotype, and I just felt I'm a woman, I'm a black woman in the boardroom. And even before that, the challenge of expectations, the challenge of that you're a woman, but I also think that a lot of it is in our minds. And being able to break that barrier and proving yourself consistently. The challenge of staying the course, because I think that's what a lot of people forget. By the time you're talking about 28 years, it's time. There's been many lows. It's not always been a success story. The challenge of people judging you just because you're a woman, but rising above it anyway and making it. And in time, you start to build a track record for yourself. So the foundational years were very, very important. And I tell that to a lot of young people. Your 20s into your 30s are going to determine the trajectory of the rest of your career. And as you continue getting success and proving yourself, I won't say the journey becomes easier because you're rising to higher levels. Now you're at the boardrooms of the world. Now you're dealing with international, maybe stereotypes at times. But at the same time, it's your mindset, it's the resilience, it's your ability to get collaboration and cooperation, to get mentors, and very importantly, to do your job.
Okay.
Yes.
So The reason I asked that question,
Yes.
because the way the world, they say, is a man's world.
Yes.
So that appears to make women to be in, quote unquote, a combative situation, posture. The reason is because they literally have to fight for almost everything and anything. And you're talking about wealth retention, maybe scaling wealth and all of that.
Yes.
When you work with women, what do you see? What have you observed as far as the structure of what you do is concerned? And what advice do you have for them?
You see, when I look at the challenges, and that was your earlier question, when you work with women. So first of all, women businesses are actually face, it's interesting, 42% of businesses across Africa and even in Nigeria is women, and that is huge. But the same challenges of, first of all, financial literacy, access to finance, operational challenges of people being able to make their businesses official, the business etiquette, the business knowledge, the training gaps, and you realize a lot of businesses remain at the macro, basically at the nano stage. Challenges of access to finance just because they're women and probably they've not been able to have had training to formalize their businesses. But at the same time, there's a lot of societal and mindset challenges that women have to overcome. And that's why the role of empowerment and support for other women, because there are women businesses that have done very well. And women need to see that so that there's a shift. It doesn't matter what the challenges are, that women, that power of a mindset that is going to be unrelenting, that's going to go for the goal. Those are the challenges I see. But you also asked, across Africa when it comes to wealth retention, real challenge as well. When you ask yourself, apart from the women businesses, how are we building wealth retention? What are the businesses that you can say have been around for 50 years? What businesses can you say have been around for 100 years? What wealth, they actually say only 1%, statistics show, only 1% of wealth in Africa is professionally managed. And that is a challenge. So that means that we are always starting over. 70% of wealth gets lost from first generation to the second generation. And this is the African case. And 90% of wealth gets lost from first generation to the third generation. So what that means is that we are always starting over again. And that's why at Optiva Capital Partners, this has been a challenge we've taken very seriously. How do we work with women? Yes.
So you've mentioned something quite critical, and
Yes.
before my colleague Kyrie comes
Yes.
in, which is very important. I know I was watching one on the international station. They had a program called the 100 Club. The one, I hope that's the name I can remember. The 100 Club is basically celebrating businesses that have been there for at least 100 years. I do not know how many businesses in Nigeria, this is where I come from, so let me stay here.
Yes.
I don't know how many businesses have survived for 100 years plus. Owned by Nigerians, built by Nigerians
Absolutely.
from grass and all of that.
Yes.
So my question is, what is it that we're not doing right, that this thing gets lost either in the second at 70 or the third generation for 90%? That is unacceptable.
It is, because how do we build prosperity? How do we build economies? There's got to be a structure of building enduring wealth. We've got to be able to thrive across seasons. And that's why the challenge, because we've thought about it, it's really what is the framework? Very intentional about managing wealth. That comes back to the question of that only 1% of wealth in Africa is professionally managed. You could be a banker, you could be a trader, you could be a doctor. But when it comes to wealth management, what are the structures? And this is proven over time. So at Optiva Capital Partners, this is part of what we've come up with our strategy, being very intentional about, we go to work every single day. How do we build enduring wealth? How do we help families thrive from their cycles of life? They're going to be 7 years of plenty. And how do you prepare for the 7 years and these cycles? And that's a challenge you put, because a lot of it is, you see, where are the billionaires of yesterday? Where are the businesses of yesterday? But across Africa, we are only going to be successful if you're able to address that at the family level of building enduring wealth from one generation to another. We're going to be only successful if you're able to address this at a company level, at a business level, to say my business is 20 years, it is 30 30 years, it is 50 years, and actually it leads me from one generation to another.
I mean, you're spitting fire, as they say, and I want us to empower people, because this is about women in business, but it's interesting that we're now talking about business and wealth in general. So I am, maybe not, someone watching you right now has considerable wealth, and I know wealth is subjective, but considerable wealth. And, in this climb, we don't want you to look into my wealth in that sense. Don't bring your eyes, say, don't chook your eye into my matter. Mind your business, right? So we protect our information. You don't, talk too much about your wealth. So what should that person do differently such that that wealth is transferred to the second, third, and fourth? And I'm talking practically. You talked about structure, and I want you to break it down, because structure can mean a lot of things to different people. But what does the structure mean? Some don't believe in wealth management because they think these people want to collect part of the money I spent my sweat to make. So what are the structures you would advise that person so that you're able to leave something for your children, your grandchildren, and your great-grandchildren?
Thank you very much for that question. It's actually commanded of us, and I think across whatever faith. You see, a good man leaves an inheritance for his children's children. So when it comes to the structure, why do we come to work every day? Why are people crossing the bridge? Some going to construction sites, going to the market. The structure of wealth, we've actually come up, the Optiva Capital Partners family financial tree or a structure has 4 pillars. Number 1 is financial security. And being very intentional about financial security. Financial security is your ability to meet your needs, your basic needs now and into the future. And very importantly, to start to get onto the discipline of savings. A lot of people are already into this. So savings, setting aside money, you're talking about disposable income, being able to save. And whether you're 27, you're 37, you're 47, you're 57, a lot of these conversations are relevant to all of us. And that is a discipline. Once you get onto that discipline, this is what I do with my money, I set aside consistently. So that is a financial security. Number 2, so ability to meet your needs now and into the future, whether you're employed or you're in business, to create that level of base and to be able to save, to start setting aside money consistently. Number 2, you're looking at financial stability. I have saved, like you're rightly saying, whom do I speak to? What do I do with the money that I have saved over time? There's a role of professionals, absolutely. I could be a trader, but I'm not a professional wealth manager, and that's where we come in. And it's very simple. And sometimes it sounds like wealth retention, wealth management is a preserve of a few people, but it is not. It's a conversation that is relevant for everybody. So when you're talking about the stability of the base you've built, 10 million naira in terms of saving 100 million naira, whatever it could be. First of all, how do you safeguard the value of your savings over time?
Against inflation,
against inflation, against devaluation of currency, against all the macroeconomic situations that we deal with. So the main word is safeguard. Very importantly, how do you diversify? How do you allocate we handle a lot of investments coming back into Nigeria. So it's really looking at the world with a global lens. Right. Don't limit yourself, diversify, prepare for the rainy day. Make sure, right now a lot of them, you can get all the visas you want. For example, you can travel anywhere. But how do you make that permanent while you're thriving? Right. Because time will come when you go to embassies and they won't listen to you because your circumstances have changed. So that's what my advice to them. So it's diversification.
There you go. Yes. It's almost what we've talked about with our economy as well. Diversify the economy. So it's for individuals.
Yes.
On a final note, we have just about a minute to close. Yes. I mean, you oversee about 1,000. Your workforce is about 1,000. Am I correct?
Yes.
You said majority of them women.
Yes.
Very interesting. I'm very curious. What kind of CEO are you in the boardroom? Some people, when they hear woman CEO, they're like, no, I can't survive it. But how do you handle the boardroom? What kind of person are you in the boardroom?
I would say I'm a situational leader.
What does that mean?
Situational leader is different. You assess the situation. There are times, it depends. It's so varied at the workplace.
So when you need to be a lion, you're a lion. When you need to be a dove, you're a dove, or a lamb. Is that what you mean?
Absolutely. So different people, but first of all, in terms of being an inspiration and providing direction. I've been a different leader in different seasons across my career. But what I say is, when you talk about inspiring people, it's really appealing to them individually to see their journey and what is possible for them. I think for me, whether as a leader at the boardroom or as a leader in the marketplace, that's one of the things that's very, very important to me. And especially looking at the bulk of our citizens and the workforce, it's inspiring people to see what is possible for them. Like what has been possible for me is possible for them. And after that, being able then to provide the right environment, the leadership, the direction, the management on a daily basis to be able to help them succeed. It doesn't always sound like it's going to be rosy, yeah, but that's what I believe in that leadership is.
It's been an interesting conversation, and I really hope that a lot of people have taken a cue from this, because it's something we need to really talk about in this part of the world and let it sink in. So you can watch this conversation again on YouTube and ensure that this really sinks in for you. We've been speaking with Dr. Jane Kimemia, CEO Optiva Capital Partners. Thank you so much for your time, and we wish you the very best.
Thank you very much, gentlemen, for having me and for an absolutely engaging conversation. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Keep up the good work.
All right.
We'll take a moment now. While you allow that sink in, there's a lot going on the trends. The TikTok ban and return, going off and coming back on in the US. What's playing out with the EFCC? It's a lot to chew on. So stay with us right here. It's the morning brief.
Someone who describes herself as life sync expert. I've never heard it before, a life sync expert. Monfik Ryan Abu joins us right here in our Lagos studio. Thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
This is a new one, life sync expert.
Yes.
So walk us through what that means first of all, before we get to what you do.
Yeah, so a life sync expert is the person that will help you to be able to identify the potential that you have vis-a-vis the job that you're currently doing, to show you how you can fully maximize that your potential, your experience, your expertise, your skill set. It as life sync expert is somebody that helps you to also build your confidence, build your mindset, help you to lead yourself, because there are certain situations in life that we face that we lose sense of ourselves, and it holds us back. A lot of people are depressed these days. They are stressed out. They are burnt out because of work pressures and all the things we face trying to navigate our work, our family, our social life, our self-care, and everything. So a life sync expert helps you to put it together in perfect synchrony. So you look at every aspect of your life and measure it and help you to have that synchronicity between every aspect of your life. It's not about equilibrium, it's about synchronicity.
It sounds simple, but it's a bit complicated, because that looks like an average Nigerian home problem. A lot of people, as soon as children come in, they literally throw their lives away because what they have is not enough to go around. So this is an important conversation. So
thank you.
How much of work is involved in ensuring this balance in the life of, say, let's begin with a woman, because there's a lot of burden on a woman?
There's a lot of work, and it starts with the self. For women, the burden is so much, the societal burden, the family burden. Then as a woman, we kind of give up ourselves for the good of the family. Then we realize that who we are as individuals kind of takes a back seat. It happened to me from personal experience. I started my work life, I worked in the bank for 13 years, between 2001 to 2015. Then I started my own business subsequently. but I was actually doing the business on the side while in the bank from 2008 till currently. Because I saw this gap, I saw a lot of my colleagues drowning because of the pressures of work life. Once you have a child, it's like your career has ended. It shouldn't be the case, because as young girls, we all had dreams and ambitions. We all had education. Some of us even have PhDs and everything. I know so many women that are just, their life is just like in a standstill at the moment because they are raising children. But the irony is, after a while, these children leave you and move on with their lives. Then you now can't fill that void that you now have, obviously, because they are gone. And you can't get back to work because you've had so much gaps. You don't even know the skill set that you have, the potential, the expertise that you can bring to add value to people so that they can pay you based on your expertise or experience. So that is that gap I wanted to fill, so that women can stop sinking, so they will have synchronicity.
Ah,
Beautiful.
yeah, nice. For the sake of balance, let's talk about the men as well. So men too can lose themselves in that rat race trying to provide for the family. So they're not really pursuing fulfillment. They're pursuing survival. So at the end of the day, or at the end of the line, if they ever get to the end of the line, they look back and they're like, I was running the wrong race, running with the wrong people, running with the wrong skill set. So for the sake of balance, help us to balance it for men.
Yes. Men go through this a lot as much as women, because for the man, it's like, I have 4 sons and 2 daughters. So it's something, I have a 23-year-old son that is so worried right now that, Mommy, I don't have a job.
Are you talking about yourself or you're talking about someone else?
Myself.
Okay, go on.
Myself.
Beautiful.
Yes, I do. I have 4 sons and 2 daughters between the ages of 27. The youngest is 16. So, yeah.
That's a conversation we need to have.
True story. True story. So I know my children, my sons especially, are already feeling this burden. They don't have jobs yet. They don't have families yet, but they are already worried. How do I fend for my family? I need to get a job. I need to make something of ourselves. So every person has that need to fulfill themselves. If it's for survival, if it's to provide for the home, if it's just to do something you love, every person has it. So LifeSync helps you to fulfill that self-actualization need that everybody needs. Because the first thing we do in the principles that we share, and we created a course around it called the LifeSync Accelerator Coaching Program. We also have an academy where we work with young people and career people and business people as well to help them to synchronize. It's called the LifeSync Academy, because LifeSync is a lifestyle. You need to first of all look at your values. So what I would tell the man is, what is valuable to you? You know, what do you hold dear? What are your principles as a person? Then you need to look at your time management. Then you need to look at how you set goals. What are you envisioning for yourself? What are the targets that you have? How do you prioritize self-care? Then most especially, how do you evaluate challenges? The problem that we have in Nigeria, and I had the opportunity to live overseas. I just returned to Nigeria just almost 2 years, so it's fairly recent. I wrote a book about resilience in Canada while I was there. I co-wrote, and it became a bestseller on Amazon for 6 weeks in 2020. And what are we talking about? Resilience. It also embedded into the LifeSync blueprint principles, because when you look at whether you live abroad or whether you live in Nigeria, challenges are constant. Pain is a constant. Adversity, obstacles.
It's everywhere.
It's everywhere.
I'm tempted to ask if you did the Japada thing.
Yes, I do the reverse Japada. I don't know what they call us now.
It's Japada.
Japada, yes,
So
that's what I did.
and the Japada. So you did Japada, and it's interesting that you are now able to speak from a position of, I wouldn't say authority, but more experience.
Yes.
Because you've tasted, I don't want to use a word that will get me in trouble, but you've tasted from different points.
Yes.
And I think it just brings extra value to the work that you do. But I want to give you a practical example, maybe help someone out there today. So there's someone who has identified, obviously my life is not in sync, it's everywhere, but then those issues you talked about come into play. It's like you're flying a plane. You can't land immediately.
Yes.
You get, maybe the person discovered halfway. You have to wait till the end. So it's like, do I continue this, obviously knowing that it's not working for me, but I try to find a way to wind it down, or do cold turkey, because some say there's no point. If I've discovered that this is not working, let me pull out and start my life in that sense afresh. So what's the best approach to now coming back on track? Do you wind down gradually, or cold turkey?
Cold turkey doesn't help anyone, I don't think, because when you detach completely, what have you learned from the experience? It's like you are avoiding something that will still come back and bite you. That's how I see it. Because you're a human being, you're in the journey of life. Life is a journey. Now, if you set off for a journey right now, your GPS could fail. You know, there will be detours. There will be bad roads if you're in Nigeria. Your tire could just go flat. You know, you could lose your way. A lot of things happen. And the question is, are you not going to go to your destination? A real life example, you're going to the village to see a sick mother. And some of us now, to get to our villages, I'm from Edo State, Agbede is my village. The road from Benin to Agbede is like, when you from Lagos get to Benin, okay, you have enjoyed yourself, that's cool. Now start the journey from Benin to Agbede, oh my God, it's a whole thing. You know, but you have to get there. So life is a journey. So cold turkey would not help anyone. At the end of the day, you will still come back to what you left off, only worse than when you left it. So the key is to regroup. You know, so I specialize in mindset reset and self-leadership as a coach and a mentor to people, and also in my business consulting as well. At every point in time, you need to ask yourself, what is the lens I'm using to look at this thing? There are different lenses to look at life. You know, some people see a challenge and it doesn't even face them. I'm one of those people. Challenges excite me. Yeah, challenges make me think, what's the solution? Everything that I have done up until this point is from a vantage point of something extraordinary happened, and extraordinary not in a good way. I strongly believe that you can walk from a place you can walk, actually take one step after the other, from a place of adversity to a place of audacity. And we share that in the LifeSync Blueprint book. It's called the LifeSync alphabet, or we call it the adversity alphabet. So every alphabet in the word adversity can actually be reframed into something empowering. So what's the lens you're using to look at that thing? That's what I'll ask the person in real time. Depending on the challenge the person is facing, look at it with a different lens. It's very important to also have people, a good circle of people that you can trust, that look at you and understand you and believe in you. Seek opinion, seek advice, seek mentorship. Very important. And that's why we have the LifeSync Leadership Academy, because a lot of people are lost, truly. Because if you are doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result, that's what they call insanity.
So
yeah,
let's bring some numeric posturing to what you do.
All right.
And that has to do with, in fact, I'm trying to say, can you help us unburden some burdens? Is there such a thing as 50-50? Or is just a hoax?
50-50 in relationships?
Life, work balance?
Nothing like that. Nothing. And that's why the subtitle of the book is called The Practical Principles to Overcome the Burden of Balance. The reason people are sinking and they don't have synchronicity is because they think there's equilibrium. There's 50-50. And that's a huge lie. There is life in our work and there's work in our life. Yes. So there's nothing like work-life balance.
Does that mean when I get home I still pick up my laptop and work? Is that what you mean by this?
You are living your life at the moment. You are communicating. You are expressing yourself. You are relating with people. You are eating. You are drinking. That is life. How are you doing it every moment as you are here? You get home. You are communicating. You are speaking. You are eating. You are drinking.
Replying mails.
Replying mails.
That is life as well.
Yes, no. So with the LifeSync Blueprint, we encourage you, the physical activities that you have to do at work, try to set boundaries. so that those physical activities do not cascade into the home. Yeah, so to his question about 50-50, what happens is, and that's why I said there's life in our work and there's work in our life. So work-life balance actually doesn't exist. Because there's life in work and work in life is about synchronicity. How do you integrate life with work? Now, how did I raise 6 kids all through the banking industry for 13 years? And my kids are normal, good, well-behaved children. I can beat my chest. You can ask anybody that is close to me. I'm so proud because I lost my mom when I was 19 years old, and I'm the oldest, and it was so important for me to raise my kids the right way based on the values, spiritual values, moral values, and all of the things. So I found myself when we moved to Canada when they were in secondary school. So I went to them because I didn't want the environment to negatively influence them spiritually, morally, and psychologically. You understand? So everything I have done has been centered around my children. That's what life sync means. When I say life is in work and work is in life, I'm a wife, I'm a mother. Even if I was a banker for 13 years, that doesn't remove that I'm a wife and a mother, sometimes first, before I'm a bank worker or a banker, whatever they call it. So in the day, while in the bank, I schedule time for my family. Even if I will spend the entire day at work, my family will be top of mind. In meetings, if I have to run into the bathroom to do it, whatever it is, then times I can go and pick them from school, I relish those moments. Sometimes I get to drop them in the morning before I go to work. I relish those moments. It is hard because of traffic, proximity to the office, but it's about intentionality. Life Sync Blueprint is about intentional living based on your value systems, based on the things you hold dear to your heart. Living a life of fulfillment, not because my job is stressful, I'm going to be stressed out all the time. It's a decision. It's the lens you use to look at the world. Sometimes the job is
No, land on your thoughts. I'm enjoying what you're saying, but I have a follow-up question.
Awesome, yeah. Let me hear you.
Okay, so since you've allowed me to come in, I just wanted you to land on your thought, because that brings us to another question. Safe spaces in workplaces, quite critical for everybody. Let's not say women now, let's say women and men. Because COVID taught us a big lesson of what is really important in life. All of a sudden, everybody realized, okay, the world can actually stop. Because sometimes I want the world to just stop. Let's just breathe and then start again. But no, nobody wants to stop for any other person. America is saying this, China is saying this, Africa is watching, you know. So at the end of the day, if you were to speak to corporates, organization, on how to help their staff to have this work life, because it has to be both ways. You have to look for a way, but I'm asking issues around policy that can be proposed for companies that need this kind of counsel.
Yes. And coincidentally, that's what I do as a business consultant. I position myself with the corporate organizations. I've had the opportunity to work with Access Bank very recently, with GT Bank, Nigerian Bar Association, and so many other corporate organizations to help them to look at this thing very keenly. How do you measure productivity? The thing I ask them is they should look at measuring productivity vis-a-vis with holistic wellness for their staff. Because a staff that is hungry and working morning, afternoon, night cannot be productive. A staff that is constantly in meetings morning, afternoon, night, 5 days a week, cannot be as productive. How do you measure the key performance indicators while also having opportunities to give staff, to give a good feedback system about how they are doing at this material moment? So there should be a feedback system. There should be a system in the workplace where management and staff have interface regarding productivity. And they should be able to listen to staff to know these are the shortfalls they're experiencing that is kind of impeding productivity, so that they would allow them. So with the Life Sync Blueprint, we have a framework that enables organizations have life sync friendly environment. If some other organizations are doing it, none is coming top of mind right now because of the spur of the moment. But there are places you can put in the office where I know in the bank those days people will go to the cafeteria and just take a nap. There's something called the power nap, and it's 5 minutes, and you can have a 5-minute side gist with your colleague. Just be blabbing on something that has no importance. Close your eyes for 5 minutes, even on your desk. It will do amazing things to kind of wake you up at the midday when your body is like trying to your energy level is shutting down. Energy management is a key thing that work organizations need to pay attention to, and the individuals that work in those organizations also need to pay attention to. So there are many ways to go about it, but the organization needs to give opportunities for a good feedback system where employees are able to express what the pain points are, so that you'll be able to bring them in. So when that expression is made, I come in to provide that framework to enable them to. There's a step-by-step guide in this book on how to do it.
A great book.
Interesting. I just did some permutations and stuff about the power nap thing, and I don't know why I thought about people abusing it first, because I've seen organizations try to introduce things here and there, and you see that's where people stay, that's where they resume, and then closing, you're like, come on, this is not what this is for. No, so organizations say, no, we're not having it anymore. So obviously there needs to be some sort of structure, help people understand, and that takes me to the point of the environment we're in. I have a challenge with the fact that it's not usually people first. So things are not designed for people. Sometimes laws are not designed for people. It's the people that are designed for the laws. So you don't think about someone wants to build a structure, for example, and you don't think about how people will exist in it, where they will park, how big should the bathroom be, how will the person open the door, where will the door swivel. You open the door halfway and then you are hitting the sink, or you're hitting the water closet. It looks like we don't think about people first. There are people who pay attention to that. So how can we embed this into our culture as well? I mean, you see Japanese schools, for example, where you can recline their chair, it becomes a sort of a bed and they sleep, or in offices, but it's not like a culture thing. Am I wrong? You're
not wrong. You're absolutely correct. There's a lot of work to be done. A whole lot of work. But what I believe is we can only be the change we want to see, starting from ourselves. So from our own little corners, even if it's from our homes, how are we looking at another person and what the other person needs? Then when we get to lead in organizations, we apply that. Sometimes the toxicity some of us face in organizations, it's not because of the organization itself. It's because of the person manning that department, the head of department. You don't work for an organization, you work for your boss. Yeah, that's what I've come to see. Because people run away from the banking industry. I enjoyed the banking industry.
We need to have that conversation another day. How you were able to, I know people have said that. I mean, we had the guest earlier and said you enjoyed it. But go on.
I enjoyed it in terms of the fact that I have this reframing technique where I use challenges and use it as a stepping stone to opportunity. I actually intentionally use my setbacks as a position to come back, so it was challenging, but I was able to navigate it. But when I say I enjoyed it, it made me tap into my potential. The things I didn't know I could achieve, I was able to achieve it, you understand? So we need to, as head of departments in the bank, then I made reference to it because there are certain people I worked with, the job was cool, but certain times when I realized, I'm stressed out, it's because of the person that is my boss at that moment.
You weapon fashioned against
yes.
The direct weapon.
Yes.
Fashioned against you.
Yes.
There's a lot we could talk about.
Yes.
We enjoyed this conversation.
Thank
you so much for what you do.
Thank you.
I've never heard live sync experts, so I've met the first one.
The first one.
So, congratulations and thank you for what you do. Monfik Rayan Abu. Your book is Life Sync Blueprint, Practical Principles to Overcome the Burden of Balance. When I saw the title, I was like, this looks like a thesis. It reminds me of what they call the danger of average in inclusive growth in economics. So I'm happy you're breaking it down for all of
Yeah.
us, so that we
Thank
can
you.
have a better life. Thank you so much
Yeah.
for coming on the
Thank
program.
you so much for
really
having me.
appreciate it. And
I
I
really
love to your lovely children. You know
Thank
why
you.
we had to ask again, how many children?
6.
And
The oldest is 20.
the oldest is 7.
27.
And the youngest, no, it's not even
16.
it's not even the oldest that's my problem.
It's the
youngest.
The youngest
The
is
youngest is
16.
my problem. Well, I had youngest 60. That's okay.
Yeah, okay.
We're coming. Thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you so much for
And I
having
love
me.
to your family.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
All right, we will take a quick break. When we come back, it will be time to bring your trends. Yes, we've not forgotten. So Kari will be right here to do it for us. Join us again.
It's time to take a look at what you've been saying regarding the big talking points both on and off social media. And we'll start with that incident involving the EFCC operative Sadwan, who was shot and killed in what was said to be an operation in Anambra State. He's since been buried, another one injured. And that particular incident, Jeffrey, has raised lots of questions. So first, we need to start with the major one, the fact that someone died, sadly. That should not have happened, and our hearts condolence to the family and
Absolutely.
the EFCC. That's on the one hand, but obviously people have raised questions about the MO, the modus operandi. In November, for example, the EFCC is saying, and that's the chairman saying that night sting operations have been banned for the EFCC. So questions were raised about the timing of this particular one, whether or not the person who was being raided or the home thought they were invaders or EFCC, and people have raised questions about is this a time where we talk about really sorting out that modus operandi for the EFCC?
Look, for me, the best comments will come when we see the CCTV footage.
Right.
Because it's his word against theirs. Unfortunately, the man who died has died. And our
Sadly.
thoughts and our prayers are with the families. So that is where the bone of contention is. They say they approached the place. They had spoken to the police about the operation. They went there early hours of the morning, but they did not state what hour of the morning they went there. That is missing in that statement. I think they should have said it. They said the man saw them on the CCTV. They tried to engage him. Those were their words in this statement that is scrolling on the screen, because they suspected things were happening that were not ethical. And then, well, things got out of hand, and the man shot and killed Mr. Salisu, who is the EFCC official. So, but the EFCC said there was a CCTV. So the CCTV will be able to tell us exactly whether the EFCC, the narrative is the correct one or not. But this issue of late hours or early hours of the morning, 2, 3 a.m., as I said, the EFCC don't give us time, so I can't say. So the CCTV will tell everything, because CCTV will show the time they went there, whether they were actually engaging the man in a civil conversation or it was a Gestapo style and all of this. But we should not kill our law enforcement agents.
No.
It's not acceptable. Should not kill our law enforcement agents, and our law enforcement agents too must be responsible enough to carry themselves with respect, so that we don't have to record this kind of embarrassment. Somebody is dead. Whatever we're saying now, somebody is dead.
Sadly.
And
So
that
what
is
we want to
sadly.
see is how this will not happen again on both ends. But people have been talking, Jeffrey, because the EFCC put out this statement, frowning at people twisting the event and talking about the milk of human kindness, particularly for the person that died. So Esteem is first saying, can you guys shed more light on the time this operation was carried out? So for this user, in the early hours is not enough. Again, some will say night sting operations maybe refers to night, from 7 p.m. all the way to 12 midnight. Anything from 12 midnight is becoming the early hours of the morning. Semantics here and there, but that's what this user is asking. Shed more light on the time the operation was carried out, and I think this will speak to transparency.
This Sasuke says, first of all, don't delete the CCTV footage, and I agree. We need to see it. Secondly, can we see the arrest warrant for the individual in question? Thirdly, when will your officers start wearing body cam if truly you want to raid in the night, and hope you always provide body cam footage? Because I raised this with Muyiwa Adejobi, the first PRO, and I think we have to raise this with the local head, the chairman of the EFCC. Law enforcement officers should start wearing body cam, because it helps even themselves. Because at the end of the day, this is what they're wearing, this is what the camera is seeing, so we can be able to properly interrogate this as much as we should, rather than speculations, your word against mine and all of that. So I'm just sad that somebody died. I think that is where I can't walk away from. It's just unfortunate. Just unfortunate.
So one thing should be clear: the fight against corruption is everyone's fight, and everybody should support it. But let's talk about what is playing out in the United States, Jeffrey, and that's with TikTok. Who ever thought that TikTok will be such a major thing? You see content creators in the US, a lot of them are doing this symbolic, Jeffrey, content creators will be content creators. So they did like
this is their return, right?
A burial service when it's shut down. And you see all of them. A lot of them content creators, a lot of them get into limelight on TikTok, making thousands and millions. So you'd understand what this means to them. So this was the period of mourning for the content creators. So you imagine what happened when the resurrection happened. So TikTok died in the US and came back to life hours after.
12 hours later,
definitely,
TikTok came back.
So this is a statement that TikTok put up on X. So TikTok had to go to X, Jeffrey, to put up a statement about it coming back. So it says, we thank President Trump for providing the clarity and assurance to our service providers that they will face no penalties. So TikTok is back. 170 million users in the US, Jeffrey.
Absolutely. So Trump, I was watching his rally yesterday, his last rally before he sworn in today, and he said, TikTok is back. So congratulations to all TikTok users. The only thing we ask TikTok is that you need to be fair to the African content providers. I think the monies they are being paid for doing the work they do is ridiculous. It's ludicrous compared to other clients. We're big on TikTok here. I think that's my best
addict. Yes,
I love TikTok. Everybody knows I love TikTok. But thank you so much for your time and company. That's the much we can take on the program. And I'm Jeffrey Uzama.
I'm Kayode Kikiolu. Sunrise Daily is next. Stay right in with us on Channels Television. And have a great day.